Hello and welcome to the Brand Storytelling live streams for June 24th, 2020. I'm Drew Parkhill. Thanks for being with us. These live streams air every Wednesday, and our mission is to deliver the most timely and relevant information for our community of brands and their storytelling partners. These shows are designed for you, so please let us know how we can best serve the community. Please suggest future topics and guests that would help you now as well as into the future. You can drop me a line. I'm Drew at BrandStorytelling.tv. I'm excited to introduce our host and our partner for this program. Wattpad is a social network for readers and writers. What YouTube has done for video and SoundCloud for audio, Wattpad is doing that for narrative storytelling. I want to throw it over to Chris Stefanik. He's the head of brand partnerships at Wattpad. Chris, go ahead and take it away.
Perfect. Thanks, Drew. And hi, everyone. Excited to chat today. And thanks for giving us a bit of your Wednesday afternoon. So as mentioned, we're doing a bit of a panel today around some of the research we've done around Gen Z and the impact that COVID and the general changing kind of environment is having on their behaviors, perceptions, and otherwise. And so what I'm going to do is quickly run through a few quick slides to kind of set the context, and then I'll introduce our kind of panel here. And so I promise you this will be a max 5 minutes because everyone likely wants to hear from those folks other than me. So I'll introduce them in a second. But we've done some amazing research and want to make sure we do it justice. So I'll dive into my screen share here. Drew is going to send it a full research report kind of after that has a little bit more than what I'm going to present today. But firstly, thanks to Drew, Rick, Mike, the whole brand storytelling crew. I think they've been doing a fantastic job kind of bringing the community together over these last 4 to 5 months now. And as we all kind of, understand like the new kind of normal that we're living in. And so just hats off to the brand storytelling crew. I think the content's been great and just keeping this community tight when we have to be all continue to be kind of physically apart is super important. So thanks to the team.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate that.
So how is Gen Z navigating the new normal? So Drew gave the quick 101 on Wattpad. I'll go a bit deeper. Wattpad, again, is a social network of readers and writers. So about over 80 million monthly users, largely Gen Z females that are just hyper engaged and love long form narrative content. That's the quick and dirty around who we are. You can see a bit of what the experience looks like on the right. Again, Drew kind of said it, what YouTube's doing for video, SoundCloud for audio, Instagram for images, we're doing that for stories and storytelling. And so you can see a bit of the experience on the right here as well, or on the left, sorry. I have a bit of the pinwheel moment. Perfect. There we go. There we go. So from a metric standpoint, over 80 million monthly users, signing up new users at 100,000 per day, over 665 million uploads. So again, a really massive repository of content from personal stories to romance to science fiction to fantasy. I guarantee most people could find something that resonates with them on the platform. Our community spends about 37 minutes per day on the platform, so hyper engaged audience. And most folks on the live stream today are probably interested in the US. So we're 14 million in the US, spending over 1 billion minutes, 86% female, 84% 13 to 24. So won't say too much more about Wattpad other than that. If people want to learn more, they can go to business.wattpad.com. But if you hear the word Wattpad, you should think storytelling, hyper engaged young female audience that just loves falling into a super immersive narrative story. So we asked Gen Z a bunch of questions throughout actually April 20th to April 30th. This was the second survey we did during the pandemic around, how they're behaving, what their perceptions are, and just the general kind of views of the world. This was done a bit, prior to obviously everything that's happened around the conversation on racial injustice and racism. So take that into context as we go through this. Like some things may have changed, as that's also kind of had large impact on all of us. And I think that's important to acknowledge right here. And we're planning to do more research kind of moving forward. So, I'll make note of that throughout, but I absolutely think a lot of these insights still apply to all of us as kind of brand storytellers and marketers. So what is Gen Z missing the most right now? So we gave them a large gamut of responses they could provide here, everything from kind of hanging out with friends to sports. Not a surprise, hanging out with friends and family is the piece of their lives they're missing most right now, and we'll talk more about this in a bit. Followed shortly by life celebrations, birthday parties, weddings. I mean, physical interaction is important, and even myself and one of the panelists were talking before about how people are craving this more than ever as things start to open up. So not a surprise here. We also asked them what aspects of their lives are being reevaluated. And the number one topic here was education and school at 69%. And I thought that this actually paired interestingly with the 41% with careers. And I suspect we might see these rise depending how the next kind of full school year goes, if things are entirely digital or if it's a bit of a hybrid model. I know from talking to some of our users that they're really curious to see how the next kind of school year is going to go. And we can ask a real Gen Zer that kind of shortly. But internships and co-ops kind of really went away this summer, and I think this is forcing a lot of this younger generation to really think through what their longer term future looks like and where they want to focus their time and energy. We asked them where they find their inspiration. So not a shocker, Wattpad being a reading and writing platform, those popped up in the top three, 82% around reading, 63% around writing. 76% of folks are looking for entertainment and TVs and movies to provide them with inspiration and solace, right? And again, not a big shocker. 59% leading to social media. What this tells me is that this generation is definitely seeking content, whether or not it's because a lot of leisure time on their hand or boredom, but all four of those, of course, are entertainment activities. And so the natural next question to ask is, what type of content is this younger generation craving? Short form or long form? And we kind of busted a bit of a myth here where we saw that 49% of those that we surveyed preferred long form content given the pandemic, right? They're looking for longer form movies, books, which, again, is against what maybe we all think of when we think of this younger generation with smaller attention spans. Then we also asked them what type of content do they want right now? And again, this was at the end of April, but they were very much looking for escapism content. 87% said they were looking for content that was around, that gives them a sense of escapism or the ability to daydream, right? Just get away from the day-to-day and everything that's going on in the world right now. We also asked them how their trust levels have changed, and don't want to exhaust this whole thing. I'd bring your attention to the red box, but we actually saw that quite a few of the respondents indicated that their trust level around brands had dropped. So 32% said they were less trustful around brands in general. This is a broad overarching statement, and I know we're going to get into this with the panel. In fact, it's probably where I plan to kick things off. My view is every brand, every organization should be double clicking on this and understanding whether or not trust has increased or decreased given their scenario and how they've responded to everything over these last kind of 4 or 5 months. But certainly from a broad perspective, it seems that brands in general have eroded trust given amongst this younger generation. We also dug a bit deeper around what approaches are working for brands and what are not. And we all know this, right? Messaging around in these difficult or uncertain times has grown kind of fatigued, right? 69% agreed or strongly agreed that they don't really want to see kind of any messaging that leads in with that. That's certainly a few months old now. And frankly, there's real appetite to see positive messaging moving forward. I think with the right tone, right? This is one that's probably changed a bit given the very important continued conversation around kind of racism and racial injustice. But there's, I think, still a very important kind of place to be had and swim lane to be had around positive messaging, probably for the remainder of the year and going into 2021 as we still kind of figure out what the world looks like and move past kind of COVID-19 and this pandemic. We also looked at how brands can help Gen Z on a personal level. Certainly, these are really like just tangible things they want to see from brands. Make delivering shopping, give me entertaining content to read. I mean, this isn't rocket science, but this generation really wants to see kind of tangible actions being made from their brands that really matter. We also asked, what will the future look like? And this is something we'll also plan to dive in a bit deeper with the panel. Again, we'll share this out. I won't exhaust it, but I point the 20% on the fifth bar here, which 20% of the audience said they won't do anything differently when the world goes back to normal, which I was actually quite surprised about. I think if we redid this today, this would be even lower, right? I think we would see this drop quite a bit given the last kind of 4 to 5 weeks, and I think there's a question to be had around how do we collectively work as marketers to probably bring this down even further, because things probably will change. We're not going to be living the same way we did kind of before February of this year, or whatever it was, March. But to wrap it up in maybe a little bit more of a positive moment, this generation is certainly optimistic. And again, it's broad strokes, but 43% are optimistic that society will come together to be able to build a better world coming out of this. I personally agree with this. I think we're seeing a ton of innovation across the board. We're having very important societal conversations, given the last 4 to 5 weeks, which are ongoing, which are more important than ever. So I think we are going to come out of this and come out of 2020 in a better place moving forward, but we've obviously, it's been kind of, certainly a challenge for all of us. So to summarize this, and I know I raced past it and that was intentional, but key takeaways for brands, long form content serves a role maybe now more than ever. And certainly this aspect of escapism is important to this younger generation. Folks should be reevaluating their messaging, not even just around these uncertain times, but overall. Especially over these last kind of 4 to 5 weeks. There probably is still a play for brands to be leaning into positive messaging. And then lastly, I think everyone needs to take a moment and think about how their organization, their brand, their company, have they built trust in 2020, or have they eroded trust? I think it's a worthwhile investment for most folks to be double clicking on this and really understanding where they sit. Lastly, so we'll move on to the panel, but we felt we'd do something kind of fun today, which is we're going to give out a bit of a prize to whoever asks the most kind of interesting question during the panel or during the Q&A at the end. So stay engaged, ask us questions, jump in. Let's keep this a two-way conversation as we chat with the group. And so whoever asks the most interesting question, and this will be chosen by our Gen Z panelist, Katie, we'll get a $50 gift certificate to Uber Eats, so their food delivery kind of company of choice. So looking forward to see what people say during the Q&A. I'll quit sharing my screen. So going to jump in here. I want to introduce kind of our panelists, and super thankful that everyone's kind of given up their time here. So we have a few folks on the line. We've got Danny Patterson from Mindshare. We've got Rich Thomas from Insomniac Events, and I believe we have Christine Hunt from ELF. I don't know if she logged on with a different link. Christine, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you see me?
Okay. Yep. Perfect. Awesome. I was like seeing two of myself. I was like, that doesn't make sense. Awesome. And then we also have Katie Frederick, who is our Gen Z panelist, Wattpad user, certainly been on the platform for a number of years, and so she can tell us whether or not we're even on the right track here. So excited to have Katie on board. So let's dive into it. Wanted to kind of kick things off with the trust question, right? So I think this still proves to be true, regardless of us doing the research, in April or refreshing it, more recently. And I think I'd ask the panel around, do they have particular thoughts around why trust has decreased kind of overall, and how should marketers be kind of adapting to this or responding to this? And I know, Christine, you had some thoughts around this, so maybe we'll start with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey guys. So I think with Gen Z, we see this more with Gen Z than with any other generation. They really want to see brands take action, right? So a lot of brands might say that they're for something and might stand for something or for some social good, but Gen Z really, I think, is the generation that's going to question them and really keep them honest and hold them to that. So I think that's why their trust in brands has gone down. I think there is a big call for transparency, especially right now in the socio-political climate. Before what's recently transpired with Black Lives Matter, we saw like 55% of Gen Z in a recent study with IBM had actually chosen brands that were eco-friendly, socially responsible, and actually had some action behind that. I think with the Black Lives Matter movement and, current events, I think that that's probably gone up significantly since then. We've recently experienced that in the beauty world ourselves. There was a movement just recently called Pull Up for Change. And so there was a call for all of the brands who have said that they stand with the Black Lives Matter movement to actually share, like, what are your diversity stats, right? And what are your commitments and what are your plans? So Elf rallied really quickly to provide that and say, here's what the numbers are. They are not perfect. We're not perfect, but here's our commitment and here's our transparency around what we're doing.
Yeah, I think that's super important, and I've seen that kind of come through a lot. It's something Wattpad actually had done prior. Rich, Danny, anything to add here?
Yeah, I mean, we recently, obviously it's June, so it's also Pride Month in the midst of everything else going on. And so a lot of brands have come to us and said, what should we do for Pride? And the first question I ask is, well, what do you do for the LGBTQ community, and what are your business practices like, payment equity, things like that, before we talk about anything in the marketing realm? Because purpose should drive what you put into market. It shouldn't be coming up with a new campaign, but rather talking about the actions that you already take as a brand and why it's relevant to the community. And similarly, more specific to Gen Z, they are the most media savvy generation ever. So if a brand does something that is simply for the sake of marketing and appropriating something like Pride or Black Lives Matter, they're going to be exposed in minutes. So, it's authenticity is key to anything that any brand does, especially targeting Gen Z around any type of social movement.
Awesome.
Yeah, 100%. Full disclosure, my son is 21, so I have Gen Z in the house at all times. And we talk a lot about what we see on social media and different brands who are coming across in an authentic way that isn't just authentic in this moment, but consistent with what they've done over the course of their history. Is this something that people are doing right now, or is it an amplification of practices that they've been implementing for the duration of their lifespan? And I think overall there's a huge amount of skepticism in the world. I think the job of young people, as it's always been throughout history, is to question that authority and to hold people accountable for their authenticity. Very thankful that it's happening right now. Insomniac has always been a place where people of all walks of life can go and feel comfortable, feel safe. It's a very inclusive environment in our festivals. And what we're seeing right now online, because obviously our festivals are on pause right now, is really a rallying together of that community and sort of galvanizing all the different walks of life that come to our shows and seeing them push ahead. And they're holding us accountable too, in terms of how we diversify our events, what our lineups look like from show to show. And it's a good thing for us, because I think the entire music industry needs to be challenged in that way.
Yeah, and I realized too, I think what most folks on the call probably know Elf Cosmetics and Mindshare, but they might not know Insomniac Events. So maybe just to level set, because you're talking concerts, live shows, maybe the quick 30 seconds around who you guys are, just for context.
Yeah, Insomniac's been around since 1993. We currently, our sort of crown jewel festival is Electric Daisy Carnival. That happens all over the world, but our biggest show is in Vegas. And last year we had about 185,000 people a day to the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. We have events in Mexico, we have events in China and Korea, in Europe, and we also do club shows, smaller events, but it all sort of started from that renegade break-in warehouse culture for dance music in the mid to early 90s. And our founder likes to say that we're still kind of a startup, because even though we throw these massive events, the culture is still very similar to how it was, back in those early days. But the music is bigger, the effects are bigger, and we put on some pretty amazing shows. But I think the foundation of everything has always stayed the same. That those core values of peace, love, unity, respect. Sometimes you hear people talk about plur in dance music, but it's pretty consistent. And I used to go to these shows before I worked for Insomniac back when I was in high school. So I've been around from the beginning, and it's still straight from the source.
Love it, love it, love it. No, that's super useful and good context. And Katie, I mean, I know we chatted about this when we hopped on the phone earlier this week, but I mean, for you, what's your view from a generational perspective in terms of people's trust towards brands right now? What are you expecting from brands when you look at how they're talking to you and your generation?
Well, I think you guys all had it correct with being authentic, what Danny said, and just using your platform and your voice to the best of your ability, because we are going to catch when it's inauthentic and when it's kind of up for show. And I've seen that a lot, and I've lost trust in brands because we live in a world now where our views and our beliefs make who we are, and it's okay to share them. A lot of the time back in the day, it was kind of like people were reserved about it. But when you're selling a product, or when you are a company or a brand, it's important to align with other people and individuals who believe in the same things that you do. And even if not, to make them aware that you believe in something, so that they know whether or not they want to support you. And I think using your platforms and your voices is the most important thing, because when you don't jump on the train quick enough, there's room for questioning.
Agreed all around. Moving along, so I mean, all of us from like the brand agency side, I mean, we're all brand storytellers, hence the live stream, but certainly, you know, approach to content creation and advertising has shifted, you know, during COVID, as well as, you know, Black Lives Matter movement. It would be great to hear, I guess, from the marketers around how you or your clients' approach to content creation has shifted really holistically over these last 4 to 5 months. And you know, I feel anyone can jump in here.
Yeah, this is Christine. Happy to take that. So I think it's shifted dramatically and rapidly, and I think it's an ever evolving process, right? So like once COVID like first really hit, we had to reevaluate our messaging. We also wanted to bring out something that was socially relevant. So we took it back to our original like TikTok campaign that we had such a big hit with. It has a song, Eyes, Lips, Face. And so we reworked that song with our with the music artist that we partnered with on that, and they were doing it like from their home. It's a funny story. They're actually a boyfriend and girlfriend. So they were quarantined together. They decided to work with us. We were really excited. We're like, we need to give everyone a little bit of levity right now, because everything is so heavy, but we also wanted to stress the importance of social distancing, of social hygiene. So we reframed the song to be Eyes, Lips, Face, Safe, about how we need to wash our hands and don't touch certain things, and really just put that out to sort of surprise and delight our consumers rather than specifically like sell a product, because again, just listening to what they needed at the time, we felt that was more important. And then how does that change now as we are farther into this COVID journey, and also hitting up against like the Black Lives Matter movement? Well, further into the COVID journey, we changed our focus to skincare, because let's be honest, very few people are actually wearing makeup right now, right? We're all working from home. I like it because that makes me feel good in the morning to still have my routine. But very few people are actually doing that, right? So we're like, you know, let's focus on skincare. Let's focus on self-care and talk about routines, because again, that's something that we need right now. And then as we approach the Black Lives Matter movement, we decided we had to regroup and say, does it make sense for us to be selling something right now during this really important message? And the answer was no, right? Like, again, we needed to put action behind the purposes that we aligned with. And so we decided to take our site down for a day. And then we decided to also, after taking our site down for a day, decided to also just really stop pushing product. So you would see in our social feed, you might see more messages, you know, again, showing our alignment. You might see some messages of positivity, but you weren't actually seeing any sort of product, no product releases, no like lipstick, no eyeshadow. So that changed for about a week straight. And that's sort of how we've been taking it day by day, is really just looking at our data, looking at also like social listening has been key for us. Taking a look at what we are seeing on social from our own community, and then saying like, okay, like what do they want to hear and what do they need right now? Do they need us pushing this message?
Yeah, that's amazing. And I mean, for an organization, I mean, you guys, from what I can tell, act super quick and nimble, right? Was it easy to make the pivot and make the decision to kind of go and take the site down for a day?
So that happened very quickly, honestly. I think it was a fast decision. Was it easy to completely overhaul everything? No, right? Like it's, we're a decent sized company, so it does take some work, but we called all hands on deck, and everyone rallied knowing that this was a true cause, right? Like if we had to completely rally and let's say change the entire site, because maybe like an influencer mentioned something and we want to lean into that trend or that product they're promoting, that would be a pain. However, everyone knew the purpose of this. Everyone was aligned in the purpose of this. So we were fine putting in that extra time, putting in that extra work, to say like, let's take a pause.
Got it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Katie.
I used TikTok and I loved the song change because I heard it and I was like, oh my gosh, it's different. And I used it and I loved it because a lot of kids are on TikTok. So that was really smart.
That's amazing. Thank you.
Let's go ahead, Danny.
One of the things we've been talking about a lot too, because on the media side of the business, we do less content creation. We partner with our clients and creative agencies to do that, but we're putting a lot of thought into what can we do, because we do control so many dollars in the marketplace. How do we invest them more intentionally? So a couple of areas that have come to light are, one key one that we talk about a lot is algorithm bias. And what's happening a lot is creators of color, LGBTQ creatives, creators are being pushed down by algorithms in favor of white cisgendered creatives. So we want to use our media dollars to support these creators more on social platforms, and also kind of on the back end in ways like when we hire producers, looking at media companies that we invest with and what are their business practices, what kind of stories are they telling around the movement, around Pride, so that our dollars are really making an impact, funding quality journalism and quality creators who've been marginalized, but also really changing what media looks like by putting pressures on publishers to meet the demand for justice. So I think, some of, and that's one of the things we want to make sure nothing we do is performative without that purpose behind it, both, what we do for our clients and what we do as an agency. So we just want to be more responsible with dollars, even ways that, consumers don't necessarily see right away, because we think it's really important to sustain, an equal ecosystem.
Right. That makes sense. Rich, you had a comment?
Yeah, I think brands in general get in this habit of over asking of their audience, and for us with live events, we sort of couldn't ask for anything because we couldn't put anything on sale. We had no tickets to sell. We had to postpone festivals, and rather than ask, we were in a position, and I think a lot of brands were, where we couldn't ask anything, and it wasn't really appropriate to ask anything. So you have to pivot to give. And it's something that we've tried to do as content creators at Insomniac is, yes, we have to sell tickets. Yes, we want to, put a lot of people in auditoriums, but we want to give them stuff too. It shouldn't just be ask, give, give, and have it be a nice harmonious balance. And we just started sort of highlighting things on our social channels, putting video content that we had set to sort of maybe kind of come out over a long period of time, almost allow people to binge watch that content. And then we started doing these virtual events where we actually lost money. But we started doing these virtual rave-a-thons and seeing the community come together online and sort of giving them these virtual events in lieu of not having in real life events, to the point where we were doing it every weekend for about 6 weekends straight. And not only were the numbers there to back up people really wanting to get back together and crave that connection, but the comments that we were seeing, this is exactly what I needed. This is the kind of camaraderie I was missing. You know, people were quarantined with their grandparents and with their kids. So people would post videos of grandma over here and 2-year-old over here, everyone dancing in a room full of lights. So that was really special to us to see.
Yeah, that's almost a good pivot to my next question. Maybe Rich will stay with you. So, I mean, we had the insight come out of the report around escapism. I think what you guys,
87%. I wrote it down.
You and what Insomniac does falls so perfectly into that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think even to pivot what our pre kind of question was, I mean, how do you see the need for escapism evolving as like things open up now, right? Like I know you guys are starting to test, you're doing more online events, you're doing some stuff in person now. How is everything evolving over there as you kind of navigate this new world?
Well, it's interesting because if you would have asked me this question a month ago, I would have said everyone's been cooped up. They're dying to sort of get out and be together and be with one another again and have a shared experience. But I think over the last few weeks, with what we've seen in these amazing movements against racial injustice, escapism isn't an option anymore. I think escaping is the wrong thing to do. Engaging is the right thing to do. And luckily, our audience and our demographic has always been very sort of sociopolitically motivated. They've been advocates for change. The LGBTQ community at our events is very present and very vocal and very welcome. And I think escapism is maybe a misnomer. I think people are craving togetherness, but I think that togetherness that you see at a rave or an Insomniac event is a positively motivated form of escapism. It's everyone banding together. Yeah, they're not at work, they're not at home, they're off somewhere else, but they're getting together for this larger purpose. You know, everyone from the Insomniac team was out on the streets of LA over the last 5 weeks, and it was amazing to see everyone kind of get together and just push the issue forward. You know.
That's great. That is fantastic. I'm going to move us along because the time is flying by. But so in the survey, we said 20% of the survey respondents said they wouldn't do anything differently when the world changes. I think most of us are recognizing that like the world is going to change in one way or another. And I mean, it has been a bit of a broken record conversation, but I think we have more data every day, regardless, like depending where you are, what markets you're in, et cetera. You know, how are brands responding to this new normal? I think, Danny, maybe I'll start with you because you have a broad view and work across kind of many clients. I mean, how is the conversation continuing to evolve around like what, you know, this new world looks like and how your brands are going to, you know, your clients are going to react to it?
I think you set it up perfectly. A lot of the conversations have been around, you know, is normal really that good because of the systemic racism that we're seeing both broadly in the world and specifically in our industry, the improvements very quickly and dramatically to the environment when everybody is staying home. So we're having a lot of conversation about equality in both representation as well in communications and internally in agencies and at clients and publishers, and also sustainability is a huge thing because coming out of this, you know, whenever people do reemerge into society, it's going to be, you know, a huge blow to environmental progress that we've made, and potentially even more so with less people wanting to take public transportation, more people driving when they go back to work. So I think racial justice and sustainability are the two things that every brand is talking about and trying to take this time while we're all still locked in to really take a look inwards, understand what we're doing, what our impact is before we start talking about how to market that. You know, there are pretty significant changes that we all need to make, hopefully quickly. I also think the other thing is, clients, especially with media, have been very sensitive to political content, especially in an election year. I think clients that we work with are largely becoming more open to that, as long as the environment that they're in is high quality, truthful journalism. They're less restrictive of their media being a part of that conversation because they understand how important it is to be there.
Right, right. No, agreed across the board. I think even more sensitivities given the year it is and the upcoming election. Katie, so tell us, like, I think I planted this seed with you before, but from your perspective, who's been doing it right? Like, if you look at the brands that you're seeing in market, I mean, who has jumped out at you in terms of putting out the right messaging that resonates with you personally?
Well, first I just want to say thank you to Wattpad and Elle and all of you guys for using your platforms the way that you should, because I've seen a lot of people who aren't, and I'm a part of the Miss America organization, and it took them some time, and I had to use my voice and say, we need to speak about this more directly, because I think there's a difference between saying we support multicultural lives when right now Black lives are the issue and what we need to be focusing on. And I think using direct acknowledgement and bringing awareness to the issues that are in front of us on the table is really important. But I had to push that, and I had to say, we need to say we stand with Black lives and we support this, because it's important that we use our voices. Really, just that is the main point of all of this right now. I think when you were talking about the new normal is using your voice, because I think a lot of people were quiet and they were unsure of speaking up, but right now we need to do that more than ever.
Agreed, 1,000,000%. And so you're out in Hawaii, and I know we talked before, but tell us how you've been spending your time now, because obviously things that you weren't hit as hard and things are a bit more open there, but you haven't been staying inside, right? I don't want to steal the thunder, but tell us how you've been spending your time during the last couple months.
Well, I live pretty far out from town because it's an island, so it's not a big city everywhere. So I was home for a little while, and I was using a lot of that time to focus on myself and what message I wanted to bring to the world and to my followers and my audience and platform that I've built. And I think I've been trying to push, we're all stuck inside, and I think a beautiful lesson of life that not a lot of people start learning until they're older is, who are you as an individual? And so I've been pushing that question on my friends and my family, because I learned that at a young age. I know who I am, and that gives me confidence in my voice and the message I want to share. And recently I've been leaning into the movement more because I'm biracial and my voice needs to be heard in it. And I've been going to rallies and public speaking at those, and organizing celebrations to celebrate Black lives, and going on live streams and talking about the things that I've been doing with Miss America. And my platform originally for Miss America was Miracle Movement, working with kids who have low mobility and helping them find joy through movement and dance. But I've decided to branch out and incorporate the Black Lives Matter movement, because it's important to me, and I think it's not ever something that we should stop speaking about until there's justice in that and change. And I've just been trying to use my voice in as many ways as possible with the LGBTQ community. You can't support Black Lives Matter if you don't support LGBTQ, because a huge part of their community is Black trans and Black queer. And so I think that's beautiful, and to just bring every injustice together and find change in everything is what we need to be doing.
That's amazing. I mean, it's just super impressive, obviously, that you're already using your personal platform to kind of make a difference, and leaning on the organizations that I know you've been a part of for a while, Miss America and others, which is it's just super impressive. So hats off to you, and keep doing what you're doing. I think, given what Katie just said there, and using the platform for good, I think we've all kind of commented on that a bit, or certainly I know Christine, you have, and Wattpad's been using its platform similarly in terms of using it to reach to 80 million to not just drive messaging but action, which we're super proud of. But Rich, Danny, and anything else to kind of share on that front across what you're doing or your clients?
One example just of one of our clients who was able to move super quickly to do something really that benefits the community more so than their business. The Girl Scout cookies is one of the products made by Ferrero, who's one of our clients. And once the pandemic and all of the subsequent lockdowns went into effect, the Girl Scouts weren't able to sell cookies by the traditional means that are usually successful to them, like parents in offices, knocking on doors, setting up stands in local communities. So Ferrero helped the Girl Scouts really quickly pivot to a digital Girl Scout cookie shop. So obviously that helped because the cookies are a huge revenue driver for the Girl Scouts, and that money goes directly into helping the kids and back into the community. So Ferrero put media investment to support the virtual store, which benefited the Girl Scouts, but also benefited people, their customers who are at home and, pretty miserable and wanted a nice light snack. So similar to what Christine was saying, an approach with some levity as opposed to, a brand taking on all these issues of the world that they aren't necessarily ready to do and can't do authentically, but rather focus on these kind of micro actions that deliver immediate good to the community and their customers. So I thought that was an awesome example, and it was really fun to work on.
Yeah, no, that's super cool. And I think, there's so many different ways to do good right now, whether or not you're leaning into the organizations you already have ties to, or using your platform to spread, the right messaging around kind of Black Lives Matter and racial inequality, but even just supporting young people in general. Like one example I meant to bring up during my little preamble was like, I've been really impressed with Dunkin' recently. Like they really, we're really early to say we're going to open up 25,000 jobs across our franchisees for young people, because there's not a lot of jobs out there. And we're also going to make online education through South Hampshire University and make a bunch of courses available for free. Like it was just really impressive. And I just think there's just so many ways to do good given the environment right now. And the Girl Scout example is such a perfect example to throw in the mix as well. So for those that are listening in, I think, the upside here, if you will, is there's no one size fits all in terms of how people can be doing good today, which is certainly the way I think about it. So I want to pivot to the questions. We've got one on the live chat right now. Certainly, folks think of others. It's a fairly broad one, so I think a lot of people can jump in. And Susanna Rivera says, what do you guys think will be some of the behaviors/habits that have changed for Gen Z that will stick, and why? What are the behaviors we might see fade away? Good question. Give everyone a second to mull it over, but feel free to jump in, folks.
I think you'll see a change in spending habits for sure. I think you're going to see a lot of people put the money into places where they feel it deserves to be put. And we were talking earlier about things that people can do for live music. We have a pretty diverse group of people that come to our shows, but for live music, you're going to see when festivals start to happen again, diversity in the lineups. And I think when you're a ticket buyer, you're going to choose whether or not you want to spend your money with a certain promoter based on who they put on, based on who they support, based on the artists that they're paying and the music that they're driving to the forefront. So I hope you see a lot more people, young people, putting their money, their hard-earned money, into places that they really researched and thought about. Maybe a little bit less in terms of, I'm going to go spend money over there, I'm going to go spend money over here. I see it in my son. He's making conscientious decisions on where to put his money and where to put his time and what businesses to patronize.
Yeah,
I know it's kind of a broad answer, but it's just a deeper analysis of the options that are out there.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I it was buried in one of the slides I presented, but the 20% slide also showed that 52% of the audience said they're going to save more, right? This generation plans to save more, which of course makes a lot of sense given unemployment, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's certainly something we'll see. And yeah, I mean, you can even see what's happening with Robinhood and the news cycle with them, right? There's a ton more engagement and activity happening across that in terms of like more of a millennial kind of day trading app. Any of the others have anything to add or share in there?
We have quite a few. Oh, sorry, Christine.
No, go ahead.
We have quite a few health and wellness brands, kind of ranging from pharmaceutical to vitamins and supplements.